in the earlier videos we have discussed about quinolones, different generations of quinolones, and how the spectrum has been widened because of the fluorine introduction into the quinolones, which is resulting into the fluoroquinolones. And in today's video we will discuss about the mechanism of action, resistance formation, pharmacokinetics, adverse effects and therapeutic uses of fluoroquinolones. So if you see the mechanism of action of the fluoroquinolones, simply you can say that it is by the inhibition of the DNA gyrase and topoisomerase 4 enzymes, which are responsible for bacterial replication process. So that is the ultimate mechanism of fluoroquinolones. But before understanding what happens if the DNA gyrase and topoisomerase 4 are inhibited and what is their role in the bacteria, for that you should know what is their functions. So if you see that this is the circular DNA which you can find in bacteria. So if this DNA before replication process, the two strands should be separated, because somewhere the DNA replication process should start. So at the starting point there should be the cleavage, or there should be the nicking of this DNA, one of the strands should take place. For that you require an enzyme called as DNA gyrase. The DNA gyrase in the bacteria is very similar to topoisomerase 2 in the mammalian cell. But here you have to remember that the fluoroquinolones affinity towards DNA gyrase is many times more than the mammalian topoisomerase 2, because both will have similar type of structure. Although they are having some similar type of structure and having same functions, fluoroquinolones can selectively inhibit the DNA gyrase, and this selectivity is somewhat 500 to 1000 times more than the mammalian topoisomerase 2, which is also having important role in the mammalian DNA replication process. That's why DNA gyrase inhibition is leading to relatively safer antibacterial effect of the fluoroquinolones. So now we will see the action of this DNA gyrase. So as I told here, in order to form the replication fork, you require that nicking process or cutting of the DNA strand, which is done by the DNA gyrase. And once that is completed, then again whatever that newly formed strand should be resealed. So this nicking and resealing steps are done by DNA gyrase. And whenever the replication fork is moving like this, what happens? One strand is moving in this direction and one strand is moving in that direction. That is, the transcription occurs in the opposite directions. And once the transcription is occurring in the opposite directions, what happens to this part? Here, this part, it may undergo the positive supercoiling. So once you are pulling the what already coiled thing is there, and if you are pulling that coil, that is two strands separately, what happens? You can see that the lower part, it is undergoing positive supercoiling, that is over supercoiling, you can see. So that can be also inhibited by the DNA gyrase, because DNA gyrase can introduce the negative supercoiling. So that's why DNA gyrase is very important for the smooth processing or smooth moving of this replication fork. And once the replication process is over, what happens? You are having now two daughter DNAs, and these two daughter DNA should be separated, because in order to have two separate cells, first the whatever your genetic material should be separated. So that again here you require the other enzyme called as topoisomerase 4. So this topoisomerase, it is responsible for nicking as well as separation of the daughter cells once the replication process is over. Thereby your fluoroquinolones interferes with both these, that is, one is DNA gyrase and other one is topoisomerase 4. And one more thing which you can remember is this DNA gyrase, it is having two subunits, one A subunit and B subunit. A subunit is responsible for nicking and resealing functions, and B subunit is responsible for introducing the negative supercoiling or inhibiting the positive supercoiling. repeating. So like this, both A and B subunits of the DNA gyrase are having important role in the replication process. Along with the DNA gyrase, topoisomerase 4 is also having the important role. But here one thing you have to remember that the DNA, although we are telling that DNA gyrase inhibition and topoisomerase 4 inhibition are the two important mechanisms by the fluoroquinolones, especially in the gram-negative parasites, DNA gyrase inhibition is the major mechanism. The gram-negative bacteria, in gram-negative bacteria, fluoroquinolones are majorly acting through inhibition of the DNA gyrase. In gram-positive bacteria, it becomes reverse. That is, the antibacterial activity or bactericidal activity of the fluoroquinolones in the gram-positive, it is mainly because of the topoisomerase 4, and minorly DNA gyrase inhibition is contributing to their antimicrobial activity. And here if you see this, by this simple flow chart, you can easily explain the mechanism of action of the fluoroquinolones. First, whenever the fluoroquinolones are given, the fluoroquinolones are taken by the patient, they are forming a ternary complex with the DNA, that is the bacterial, they will enter into the bacterial cell, and where they are forming a ternary complex with the bacterial DNA as well as those two enzymes, that is one is DNA gyrase and the second one is topoisomerase 4, and this affinity, it will vary from gram-negative to gram-positive bacteria. If it is gram-negative parasite, more affinity towards DNA gyrase. If it is in gram-positive bacteria, there will be more affinity towards topoisomerase 4. Anyway, it is responsible for inhibiting the DNA gyrase, thereby interferes the nicking as well as resealing steps, and also inhibits the negative supercoiling. Because of this, what happens, if there is no nicking, means there will be no replication process. Although nicking is done, it will cause the positive supercoiling because it will inhibit the negative supercoiling done by the DNA gyrase, so that the positive supercoiling increases. Because of that, DNA aggregates will be formed, that is DNA damage occurs, and this damaged DNA is, it is a triggering factor for the exonuclease secretion from the bacteria, and these exonucleases are responsible for degrading that DNA, that is responsible for the bactericidal action. In another pathway, it is also responsible for the inhibition of the topoisomerase 4. It might be the major pathway or minor pathway, anyhow it inhibits the topoisomerase 4 also, because of which it is inhibiting the separation of the two daughter DNAs, thereby inhibits the separation of the two daughter cells, so that it is arresting the replication process, which is also contributing to the bactericidal effect of fluoroquinolones. So this is the mechanism of action of the fluoroquinolones. Coming to the resistance formation, many of the bacteria develop a resistance. Although we are telling that resistance development is slower for fluoroquinolones, some of the bacteria already acquired resistance, and among those bacteria you can say gonococci, staphylococci, pneumococci, pseudomonas, even salmonella typhi also. So mainly the resistance is because of the mutation which is responsible for the formation of altered DNA gyrase as well as altered topoisomerase 4, which are having reduced affinity with the fluoroquinolones. So they are not original DNA gyrase as well as original topoisomerase, because the mutation has been occurred. So that what happens, the affinity of the fluoroquinolones towards these enzymes will be reduced, so that the fluoroquinolones are not able to find their target sites properly, which reduces their action. And one more common mechanism is either increased efflux or decreased permeability of these fluoroquinolones. Once the fluoroquinolones are unable to accumulate in the bacterial cell, they are unable to bind with the targets, that is DNA gyrase or topoisomerase 4. So these are the two very important mechanisms which are responsible for resistance formation among the bacteria. Coming to the pharmacokinetics, all the fluoroquinolones can be taken orally because they are having good oral absorption, but food can interfere with that fluoroquinolone, so that generally they are not taken along with the food. and penetration, they are having very good tissue distribution and good tissue penetration. They can enter into soft tissues, they can enter into the prostate gland, even they can cross the blood-brain barrier, but the CSF concentrations are less than that of the plasma concentration, and excretion is generally through glomerular filtration as well as tubular secretion. Coming to the adverse effects, as we already know, fluoroquinolones are well tolerated drugs, so the incidence of the adverse effects is relatively less, includes some GAT effects like nausea, vomiting, anorexia, and CNS effects are dizziness, headache, restlessness, anxiety, loss of concentration, insomnia, because they are having the CNS penetration, no, so that is responsible for that CNS action. And it may precipitate hypersensitivity reactions like any other antimicrobial agent, rashes, pruritus, swelling of the lips, even it can lead to the urticaria and photosensitive reactions also. And one more very important and characteristic adverse effect of this fluoroquinolones is it is causing tendinitis or tendon rupture. So causing the inflammation of the tendons, or it may cause the tearing of the tendons, which is very common in the elderly. Along with that, some of the new generations of these fluoroquinolones can lead to the hepatotoxicity. So trovafloxacin like newer drugs has been removed from some of the markets because of their potential hepatotoxicity. And if you see the drug interactions, whenever these drugs are taken with the theophylline and also whatever the caffeine, it can warfarin. So along with these drugs, they can fluoroquinolones can increase the toxicity of these drugs, because fluoroquinolones are enzyme inhibitors. So they are interfering with the they are reducing the metabolism of warfarin, caffeine and theophylline, thereby they can increase the toxic effects of those drugs. And along with the antacids and also sucralfate also, it is contraindicated, because with the antacids and sucralfate it can form the complexes which are not absorbed, which may reduce the activity of the fluoroquinolones. And even fluoroquinolones should not be taken with some antiarrhythmics as well as TCA, tricyclic antidepressant drugs, which are having the tendency to cause QT interval prolongation. So this particular drug interaction is also more for the new generation drugs like mofloxacin, because the QT interval prolongation can lead to the heart block, so AV block. So that's why generally they are contraindicated to take along with the other drugs which are having the tendency. So if you see the therapeutic uses, a wide range of infections can be treated with fluoroquinolones, because they are having the extended spectrum of the action. They can be used to treat different uncomplicated urinary tract infections, where the first generation or second generation quinolones can be used. Even the first generation quinolone like nalidixic acid is also a well-known urinary antiseptic agent. And if there already resistance is there, means you can go with the second generation quinolones or first generation fluoroquinolones. And it can be ciprofloxacin is a drug of choice in gonorrhea, although many of the gonorrhea developed Neisseria gonorrhea species developed resistance in the sensitivity test. Still they are sensitive, means ciprofloxacin can be used for the treatment of gonorrhea, and it can be used as alternative medicine or second line drug for macrolides and ceftriaxone in the cancroid treatment, which is one of the STD. And it is a drug of choice in the Salmonella typhi, although we are telling that Salmonella typhi, many of the species of the Salmonella typhi develop resistance. Still 95% Salmonella typhi are susceptible. So currently ceftriaxone is the best option, but even ciprofloxacin or whatever these fluoroquinolones can be used as drug of choice for the Salmonella typhi infections. And these fluoroquinolones can be used in bone, soft tissue, as gynecological as well as wound infections, where generally high doses are required. That is, the general dosing is between 250 to 750 mg, and here you have to go with high doses, that is about 750 mg twice a day, and it can be used as a second line drug in the tuberculosis treatment, especially in the multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. It can be used as a second line drug and can be used in different gram negative septicemias. So in the gram negative septicemias also you can go with the second and third generation quinolones. Even it can be used in the treatment of meningitis caused by Neisseria meningitidis. It can be used in different respiratory tract infections like bronchitis, community acquired pneumonia. Especially in the community acquired pneumonia, third generation quinolones are preferred, and it can be used in the infections caused by the anaerobic parasites like intra-abdominal infections, nosocomial infections, as well as pelvic infections. So if the infections are because of the anaerobic parasites, in such cases you have to go with the fourth generation quinolones or third generation fluoroquinolones.